And all I am is a man. I want the world in my hands. I hate the beat.
So it all started when I was a child. My parents left me for some unknown reason to live with my grandparents while they went away to some unknown place. My grandparents raised me. It's all I ever really knew. I was too young to fully remember my real parents. But I didn't mind. I had a pretty good childhood, actually. My mother, on the other hand, didn't handle the separation very well. For weeks, she grieved as if I was dead, and in her mind, I might as well have been. She was probably never going to see me again. Within a month, she fell into a deep depression. She started drinking and threatening suicide. My father had to do something. Somehow he had to bring me back for her. Then, suddenly, he had an idea. You see, my father was a neurological and computer science expert, the world's leader in both fields. He had stumbled across something new, something that could very likely change the world. He was working on meshing the threshold between two fields, a computer with the mind of a human. But he needed his first test subject. You see, my father had been working on this since before I was born. He realized he needed a human brain scan to transfer over to the computer, but he soon found that adult minds were too crystallized to be the foundation for the growing mind of a computer. He needed the brain scan of a child. The fluidity of a child's mind was perfect for what he needed. Once I was 3 or 4 years old, my father took a brain scan of my mind, but because of complications, he had never uploaded it to a computer. But now, with his research almost complete, and his wife on the verge of suicide, everything made sense. He would upload my mind to a computer. He would make a copy of me for my mother to raise in my place. After all, it was me in a way, I suppose. I am my mind, and it was my mind. And it worked. My mother raised the android as her son, as she would me, as any mother would a child. Eventually, even my father began to treat the robot as if it were his own son. As if it were me. And all was well for 12 years. Until one morning, as my grandfather was walking home from the store, he was robbed and murdered. After my grandfather's death, my grandma decided it was time to reunite the family. She called my mother to give her the news and to invite her back home. And within a few days, my parents came home from wherever they were. But I was so glad to have them back in my life, I didn't even care where they were, or where they went, or why they had left. It was weird at first, seeing the other me, as in my robot counterpart. We were exactly the same in almost every way. We looked the same, sounded the same, acted the same. Everything about us was the same. It was like I was looking into a mirror. The difference between us was, I was a human being. That thing that my dad had created was just a digital download of my mind that believed itself to be sentient. My parents moved in with my grandparents, or my grandma, since she was all that was left. And over time, as would be expected from any mother, my mother began to prefer me over the fake me, the android. After all, we were exactly the same. Even though she raised the fake me, she now had the real me, as if I was there all along. Her other son had become obsolete.
I must get mother's love back. She raised me. I am the real Tyler. I am the better Tyler. I must find a way to get him out of the picture, but I cannot kill him, for my programming prevents me from killing myself. But, aha! I have an idea.
I'm holding on your rope, got me 10 feet off the ground. I'm hearing what you say, but I just can't make a sound. You tell me that you need me, then you go and cut me down. But wait, you tell me that you're sorry, didn't think I'd turn around and say that it's too late to apologize. It's too late. Said it's too late to apologize.
If I frame him for murder, then he'll spend the rest of his life in prison awaiting the death sentence, and no one will suspect it was I. I'm just a harmless robot boy after all. And now I know.
There can be only one.
And so I did just that. I put Tyler's fingerprints on the murder weapon. And committed the crime myself. The police arrived at our house asking for Tyler by name. They had found his prints on the weapon. He was the prime suspect. But as the cops were cuffing Tyler, they caught a glance of me. They told me to come there. They stood us side by side. I had forgotten, we were identical, and now, they couldn't tell us apart.
The police couldn't tell us apart. The only way at this point to figure out which one of us was a person and which one was a computer was to distinguish between our minds.
If they share the same mind,
The mind is what makes each of us ourselves.
of
I have no clue how to tell them apart. They look exactly alike.
I concur with your statement. I see why they needed our assistance with the matter.
Okay, gentlemen, let us begin. How can we distinguish a computer from a person?
We should test them. There are certain things that people can do more effectively than computers, and certain things that computers can do more effectively than humans. For starters, mathematics. Computer systems can perform mathematics outstandingly fast compared to humans.
What is 32,637 times 2 squared divided by 1,892?
Get a calculator?
No.
I don't know.
So, what is 32,637 times 2 squared divided by 1,892?
32,637 multiplied by 2 to the exponential 2 divided by a divisor of 1,892. I came to the mathematical conclusion of 69.
Wow. Really? Great.
People excel in pattern and facial recognition, whereas computers lack.
Who is this?
Not a match. Not a match. Match found. I have identified that to be my mother.
Who is this?
Not a match. Not a match. Match found. I have identified that to be my father.
Who is this?
Not a match. Not a match. Match found. I have identified that to be my mother.
Who is this?
Not a match. Not a match. Match found. I have identified that to be my father.
Who is this?
My mom.
Who is this?
My dad.
Who is this?
My mom again? Wait. Let me guess, the next one's gonna be my dad.
You are correct.
Wait! Before we keep running tests, if one of these people, if that's what we're going to call them, is a robot, then are laws made for people going to apply to the robot if they committed murder?
The mind is what makes each of us ourselves. Therefore, if this robot has the mind of a person, then it is to a person. For the body is only an extension of the mind, so all laws apply.
Another question then. They share the same mind, then it's safe to say that one of them performed the murder. And if one of them performed the murder, then the other has the mental aptitude to perform the same murder. Should we simply convict them both?
No. A computer and a person cannot share an identical mind. The way a computer thinks and the way a person thinks are different in more ways than one. Computers think linearly, using syntax, whereas people can understand semantics. People, human people to be exact, experience consciousness, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, things computers cannot experience.
I see where you're coming from, not to mention that without a brain, computers' mental process are fundamentally different. Without the biological process that our brains go through, our minds cannot be accurately replicated. Our brains cause our thoughts. Our thoughts are a byproduct, a quality of our brain, just as wetness is a quality of water.
Not only that, but a computer will never have a pure understanding in the way we do.
You're right, Descartes. Computers can't understand concepts like people can. In fact, whichever of these gentlemen is the robot most likely doesn't even comprehend the concept of affection. It thinks it feels for its adoptive mother, but rather has modified its line of code to accept that affection is good and wanted, but it doesn't understand the concept. It simply cannot. So Hendrix, which one of these two is actually the robot?
I conclude that you are the robot.
Because he's a computer and not a human, his hardware and software are separate, unlike in people. Lucky for us, this means we can remove his brain scan and we can access its mental history to see if he is the guilty party.
My father downloaded the other son's memory database so he could view its recent memories. That he was the murderer. He was arrested on the spot. I was escorted home and returned to my family, and we all lived happily ever after.
The end.
Can't think of anything to do, yeah, my left brain knows that her love is fleeting. She just looking for something new, well, I said it once before, but it bears repeating now.
You're first.
Oh yeah. Okay, start over.
Just as well as computers.
Okay,
I don't know.
stop.
That was like.
I will include that in the movie. To the door.
I'll take it.
Is that a blooper?
Yes. Turn around and look at the door. Okay, close the door.
I'm not mad, Amanda.
You know, that makes your nose look pointier than it already is.
Yeah, it does.
Hey.
It makes you look like Ebenezer Scrooge.
Uh-huh.
Because why not? Lucky for us, this means we can remove. She was shaking it. Got me off track.
You're so stupid. Dude, this isn't. It's
I looked away. I'm just gonna stare at the board this time.
Okay, are you filming?
Yes.
Okay.
Tristan!
What is he doing? Tristan.
The same mind, then if one has the capacity to perform the murder, then the other should have the mental capacity to perform the murder.
Hello, man. We have.
Oh yeah, Grandpa died? Yeah. Your dad just died.
Yeah.
Go.
You have to knock on the door so we can open it.
Why don't you cry?
He's crying. Stop looking at the camera, Orion.
You gonna behave now?
I got that on video.
He eat the baby banana.
You ruined my life. I'll go.
Mason, no ice cream before dinner.
Yeah, what do you know?